Choosing the right standard zoom lens for your Sony camera is a tough decision. Just ask her. One of the biggest benefits of shooting with Sony is the massive selection of high-quality lenses that are available for the E-mount. But if you're anything like me, that's also one of the biggest drawbacks because you want them all. I stopped at 6. My goal is to help you decide which one is the right one for you so you don't have to go out and buy 6 as well. This is in no way a comprehensive review of any of these lenses. I'm just going to cover use cases that are important to me. Hopefully they are important to you as well. All right, let's jump right into it. Vlogging. I feel that the term vlogging has fallen out of favor in the past 2 years, but the reality is that there are many situations where you still need to walk and talk. All of these shots were done handheld with active stabilization enabled on the A7RV. Third-party lenses do not perform as well as native Sony lenses when it comes to stabilization. That being said, the Sony lenses don't perform all that well themselves. I'd give the win in this category to the new 20-70G lens. It's just wide enough to be usable and has decent stabilization thanks to its wider field of view. Honorable mention goes to the 24-105 with its built-in OSS lens stabilization. Next up is video performance. All of these perform fine in video mode at both 28 and 70, but it's a different story when we get to stills. A little bit more on that later. The one thing you will notice in these is that there are some pretty strong color shifts, with the Sigma being fairly warm and the 28-70 kit lens shifting strongly toward magenta. All of them are parfocal-ish with the exception of the Sony 20-70 kit lens. My experience with autofocus is that the Sony lens do perform a smidge better than the third-party options when comparing side by side, but in day-to-day use, I really never notice. Build quality. The Sony 28-70 is mostly plastic and feels quite cheap, as one would expect from a kit lens. The Tamron also feels quite cheap. In fact, I've already managed to scratch the front lens element despite taking great care not to do so. In addition, there is already visible dust inside the lens elements, so clearly this is not sealed particularly well. The Sigma and Sony 24-105 are fairly similar with a nice combination of metal and high quality plastics. They do have some weather sealings, but honestly I wouldn't trust them in a downpour. The newest lens of this bunch, the Sony 20-70 f4G, feels the closest to a GM lens. It has excellent build quality and feels really good in the hand and in use. As one would expect, the 24-70 GM Mark II is built with the highest quality materials, tight tolerances, and is the only one with proper weather sealing. Given its premium price, it better win this category. All right, let's talk about optical performance. Now, we're not going to test chromatic aberration, distortion, bokeh, vignetting, etc. I always enable profile corrections in camera, so most of that stuff gets fixed before I even know about it. Now, there are plenty of other channels out there that do a much better job of testing the optical performance of the various lenses. Dustin Abbott, Christopher Frost, and Gordon Lang are definitely my favorites, and I would encourage you to check them out as well. I am not necessarily a pixel peeper, but there is an acceptable threshold that I expect from my gear. Personally, I think optics are more important for stills than video. What's most important to me is how they perform wide open, since that is the only benefit of purchasing a faster lens. If you buy a 2.8 lens, you should be able to use it at 2.8 and get good results. Once again, as you would expect, the Sony 24-70 GM Mark II has the best sharpness and great contrast wide open at 2.8, but many of the other lenses are not that far behind. By the way, if you are getting some value out of this video, I just kindly ask that you maybe hit the like button, maybe subscribe, if you want to watch more videos like this of me pretending to know what I'm actually doing. Thanks for that. Autofocus and stabilization. If you bought into the Sony ecosystem, autofocus was more than likely one of the primary reasons why. Now, all of these lenses perform really well, but ultimately native Sony lenses do perform better in both autofocus and stabilization than third-party lenses. Versatility. Most people buy a zoom lens, myself included, for their versatility. I hate switching lenses while traveling for obvious reasons. This category is pretty subjective and all of these lenses are decent enough, but I think the Sony 20-70 really shines in this category. If you vlog, you need a minimum 20mm focal length because of the active stabilization that crops in about 10%. Side note, be sure to turn off lens breathing compensation because that applies a further crop. This lens also has an aperture ring, which I absolutely love having coming from Fuji. Now, one other feature that gets overlooked is the autofocus manual focus switch. I use it all the time, and having to go into the menus to switch it is a real pain in the butt, and it's great that it's on the lens. Now, the biggest drawback of this lens is that it's f4, but between the incredible low light capabilities of modern full frame sensors, especially in FX3, A7S3, and the explosion in AI noise reduction, it's no longer an issue. All right, value. This is a big one. All 5 of these lenses represent good value, especially the 28-70 kit lens. When purchased with the new body, it's only $200 and can easily be found used for $100 to $150. I could buy literally a dozen of these lenses for the price of one 24-70 GM Mark II. The Sigma is a good buy at $800 with fantastic build quality and constant f2.8 aperture throughout the entire focal range. I picked mine up off Craigslist locally for $550, so I thought that was a pretty good deal. The Tamron goes on sale for $650, which is a phenomenal deal given its performance throughout the focal range. The 24-105 feels a little overpriced at $1,200, but it goes on sale regularly for about $1,000 and can be found used for about $700. At $2,300, the Sony 24-70 GM Mark II is the most expensive by a wide margin. But given its exceptional optical performance, relatively compact design, and excellent build quality, it's still a decent value. I can't decide on this one which one's the best value, but honestly, they all are with the exception of the Sony 24-105. All right, let's wrap this up. The 24-70 GM Mark II is objectively the clear winner here. But choosing the right zoom lens comes down to how you plan to use it and your own personal preference. If you don't own any E-mount lenses, I would absolutely recommend that you buy your first body with the kit lens. It's such a great budget option and will give you good results straight away. If video is your primary use, the 24-105 can't be beat. If you shoot 80% stills and have money to burn, nothing comes even close to the optical quality of the 24-70 GM Mark II. It's sensational, but albeit a little bit chonky. Looking for an all-in-one travel zoom? Go for the Tamron. Just make sure you bring a separate prime like the Sony 20 f1.8, which is actually what I'm recording on right now, for nighttime vlogging wide-angle shots. But for general everyday use, I find the Sigma 28-70 offers the most compelling value. Despite the fact that it's fairly soft at 2.8, it feels so good to use. It gives such pleasing results, especially video footage. Autofocus is a little slower than the native Sony glass, and the stabilization isn't great, but as long as you don't push it too hard, you'll be very, very happy with the results. No matter what you choose, you really can't lose with any of these options. We are so spoiled in the Sony E-mount system with great lens options at every budget. Which one do you like? Did I miss anything? Let me know down in the comments. That's all I have for today. Thanks for watching. Take care.